Hi friends, let us discuss something more about brainstorming, because in the previous session we were discussing about the brainstorming. So let us discuss some more aspects, some more dimension about brainstorming to become a good participant whenever we take part in a brainstorming session, as we know that it is very important part of today's activity, that is interpersonal skills, very important for any organization. So let us discuss something more. Use associative brainstorming technique to get unstuck. Association is a powerful way to get past typical thinking and to get out of a rut. We generally come up with ideas that are obvious at first, and associative brainstorming is a good way to artificially force yourself past that point instead of hours of work. It is a kind of shortcut that taps into the subconscious. The association you already know but don't allow yourself to think. Associative brainstorming works best for copywriters, creativity exercises, or when you are stuck in a creative project and don't know what content to create next. This can also be fun during your regular team building exercises. You might start with a word or two based on your project, that is wordstorm, and begin writing down any word that comes to mind. These words are then grouped together according to how they are related to each other. You will quickly create words that are associated or related according to categories. There is a wordstorm website also that may help you to get started with this wordstorm technique. Word associations are the same as wordstorm, except that you don't group according to how the words are related to each other. It works better as a technique to get creativity flowing when you don't want to bother with overthinking how words are related. Start with a word or two and write down the first word that comes to the mind. Don't overthink the process. You should be surprised at the words that pop into your head, particularly as you get warmed up. The goal is to find those hidden words that people associate with a topic that you don't immediately think of. Mind mapping. Using a mind map is a way to visually organize data and information. That is also the part of digital humanities. Mind mapping has proven popular, particularly if you are better able to understand data visually instead of as list or outline. Organized around a central idea, a mind map works like the branch of a tree. Ideas and then sub-ideas that are associated with the main idea branch off from the central idea. Word banks. Word banks are collection of words based on the kind of word one needs based on a specific topic or theme. This kind of brainstorming technique works well for copywriters who want to find a variety of words that suit a specific project without repeating themselves. You can also use it to build a bank of words to keep on hand when writing your headlines. Using a word storm might be one way to start a collection of words for your word bank, though the two techniques are the same, word storming and the word banking. Visual association. While visual association are not a typical tool for content marketers, they can be useful both in planning beforehand as well as after visual content has been created. Using visual association after a project is completed would make sure that what you have created does not raise negative association in your audience. It is best done by people who were not on the team so that their associations are honest and not tainted by being too familiar with the project. Visual association is much like word association. Use miserable brainstorming to choose the best solution. In some situations, you need to make decisions that are based on more than random association. This is where problem solving brainstorming steps in when you need something concrete. Take a new view to gain an entirely new perspective. While associative brainstorming helps you to find entirely new paths and miserable brainstorming gives you confidence to make decisions, finding a new view works when you are on the right track but just not able to nail it down. It is that feeling of being so close but not quite there. Ask, what if? By simply asking what if, you can turn everything on its head. Many fiction writers advocate asking yourself, what if? Not only when you are stuck, but even when the writing is going well. Wondering what might happen if something changed, and using your brainstorming prowess to run with it is a good way to get a different view on the project or problem. Think prepositionally. Well, I remember that my 7th grade English teacher did me a great service when she helped us to understand prepositional phrases by visualizing a box. Well, I am showing you the figure, the box. Prepositional phrases generally tell where something was, and so she said that any time you saw a phrase in a sentence that could be used in a relation to a box, you probably were dealing with a prepositional phrase. For example, in the box, under the box, over the box, beside the box, and so on. When it comes to brainstorming, it is not about writing prepositional phrases, but it is about imagining the problem or project you are working on to be like that box. What if you took a swing at it from the other side, from under it, from ahead of it? Now, you start challenging yourself to think of something from a different perspective. from a different time, past or present, and all sorts of directions. Ask questions. Oddly, most of us, particularly when working in teams, have the answer we are looking for or close to it. We feel stuck, though, because we are not able to shift through all the questions and the rest of the creative noise and pare down to that answer we wanted. By whittling away at what you know and removing the extraneous from the table, you can push aside the curtain and finally see the answer. This is where questions come into play. Write down the questions you have about the project and the problem. Then, for each of these questions, start listing the answer quickly. As you begin to answer the initial questions, other questions will come to mind that are associated with the answer you are jotting down. Write down these sub-questions and do the same procedure. Tweak your brainstorming techniques to get the best possible result. The last brainstorming technique has a bit of a twist. It is all about the different ways you can use brainstorming technique to enhance what they do. Each of the previous 3 brainstorming techniques can be made even more powerful by using a combination or integrating a few other methods to up the ante. Power combinations. Look for combinations of techniques that work well together or that your team seems to excel at. For example, maybe doing word association first and then morphing into word bank exercises is the best way to find words that work. Perhaps your designer finds great success in starting with visual association and then using a mind map to organize those associations. Find combinations that get the job done. Idea switch. The idea switch can be used with just about any brainstorming technique in a team setting. Start the brainstorming but set a time limit. When the time is up, have your team member exchange what they were working on with another member and continue brainstorming. Each team member builds on what the other had started. This is a good way to kick the rust out of each team member's creativity and force them to rethink the approach they had been working on. It is a kind of shortcut in that you might eventually end up there as a team. But forcing them to deal with the ideas of someone else and build on them will get you some interesting results much quicker. Forced limitations. With the idea that necessity is the mother of invention, forced limitations narrow the field of resources, options, time or outcomes, and force the team to work with less. Often, having too many options is paralyzing, and forced limitations sparks creativity. You have probably used many of these methods already in your life. But if you want to become a better writer and a speaker or a principal investigator, regular brainstorming will help you to make your work more meaningfully. Well, brainstorming no doubt gives you a new idea, So keep on doing that, even in isolation, also in your mind, helps you work through problems, improves your creative thinking, helps your team work better together. By giving such kind of brainstorming technique as a try, one can see the difference they will provide next time during the session of brainstorming. Brainstorming is a way to generate ideas within a group setting. It is usually used in the beginning stages of a project where the possibilities for the project are not clearly understood or defined. It provides a quick means for tapping the creativity of a limited number of people for a large number of ideas. The brainstorming environment fosters an uninhibited, non-judgmental explosion of ideas, concepts, policies, decisions, and strategies. In brainstorming, all contributions are valid, and the key to a successful session is to share as many ideas as possible without evaluating them. Brainstorming session can be unstructured. That is, there may not be a moderator or facilitator. Most sessions, however, are facilitated structured discussions with guidelines to help the process move along smoothly and allow a variety of perspectives and ideas to surface. How to run an effective brainstorming session? It is a tried and true approach to generating useful new ideas most of the time. But there are many factors that get in the way of a successful brainstorming session. Lack of focus. What exactly is the purpose of this session? Lack of organization. Where are we headed and why? Collecting the wrong people who are either too high, too low, or only peripherally involved. Participants who feel disempowered or too empowered. Too much criticism too soon. Brainstorming is intended to encourage out-of-the-box thinking. Failing to prepare participants for what is being asked of them. People may arrive unprepared. Poor facilitation. Facilitation is an art and sometimes requires a professional. Getting off topic. It is easy to get bogged down in issues surrounding the topic. Failing to follow up. Maybe your session produced great ideas that were never explored. To plan for a successful brainstorming session with optimal outcome, it is important to look ahead, choose the right people to participate and facilitate, and know exactly what you want your outcome to be. Before scheduling your brainstorm session, be sure you really want to brainstorm. Brainstorming can be a great way to help your team to feel engaged in the process. When you invite brainstorming, you are letting people know you are open to their ideas. But before you jump in, be sure brainstorming is really appropriate at this point in the project. Are you truly open to new ideas? or actually trying to get buy-in for a fait accompli? If you actually have all the project details in hand, brainstorming can be counterproductive. That is because it sets up an unrealistic expectation that employees will have a say in the project's direction. Remember, you need goals both for the session itself and for follow-up. Everything you do before, during and after your brainstorming session should refer back to your goals. After all, if you don't know what you are brainstorming, then why you bother? Have clarity on the input you are wanting. Be sure you know what kind of brainstorming input you are aiming for and what the interpersonal dynamics are likely to be. When you know that, you can select the best brainstorming method for your particular need. For example, if you are planning to include your entire team, manager, implementer and support staff, you might choose to use a brainwriting approach. This method allows individuals to write down their thoughts rather than speak aloud. In some cases, this can reduce tension and lower concern about being seen as foolish in front of peers or manager. Invite the appropriate participants. Based on your understanding of the goals, purpose, process, make up a list of invitees. Do your best to be sure that the list include individuals who are directly involved with managing and implementing the project you have in your mind. Choose a venue that fits your group best. Venue is also very important. That is environment, ambience. Based on all you have done so far, select a venue that will be comfortable and inspirational, but not so comfortable or inspirational that participants fall asleep. Take care of this. Start checking their email or go off on tangents. In other words, a comfortable meeting room is a great choice, but too much terrific scenery can be a distraction. Coffee and snacks are great, but a buffet can lead to chatting, plate refilling, and other activities that distract from the process. Work with an experienced facilitator. Select a facilitator with real, meaningful brainstorming experience and training. Give that person all the information he/she needs to manage the group and lead the process toward the goals and plans you have in mind. If you plan to facilitate, learn all you can about the process so that you are able to encourage creativity for a positive, useful brainstorming session. How to run your brainstorming session right. So, before you start brainstorming, give your group the information they need to be successful. Some of that information relates to the brainstorming process and some to personal comfort. Be sure to cover these bases. Set the scene by presenting your goals, describing the brainstorming process and expectations for activities following the meeting, and clearly outlining the schedule by which they will be achieved. Share critical information that your team will need: location of bathroom, plans for food break, anticipated completion time, assumption regarding use of cell phone, availability of coffee, etc. If you fail to provide this information, there is a good chance your participants will spend much of their time trying to get the answer from one another. Tell participants literally where to sit. Bear in mind that it is often a good idea to split up social or work groups, both to increase creativity and also to reduce criticizing in the corner. Introduce the facilitator and describe her role. If that person is you, explain your own role. Make it clear that the facilitator's word is law. If she says time's up, then the time is up. Write, post and answer questions about rules and procedures. This may include a repetition of the hold your critique rule, limits on speaking time, limits on critical comment, procedures for asking for the floor, etc. Tell people whether you intend to ask each person to speak or whether you are open to raised hands. Nominate a timekeeper or put clock front and center. Nominate a note taker and provide him or her with whiteboard, flip chart or other tools needed. Move your session forward with the scene set, goals and around rules in place. It is time to begin. And action 1, start with an icebreaker. In brainstorming, everyone is equal. Ice-breaking sessions are a good way to establish this idea by playing games in which everyone has equal role. It is also a great way to start creative juices flowing. Icebreakers can include games such as if you could choose a superpower, which would it be and why? Or what animals best represents you and why? The key to success with such icebreaker is to include everyone. No one gets to pass because they think the idea is silly. In brainstorming, everyone is equal. Action 2, limber up. Start the brainstorm process with a low-risk project-related question that allows everyone to toss in an idea without serious concern about looking silly. Be sure everyone speaks up at least once. For example, ask if you could ask a Jenny to solve our problem or complete our project, etc., then what would you ask the Jenny to do? You may discover that people have very different ideas about what to wish for, and it is those different ideas you are searching for through the brainstorming process. Action 3, that is get started. Allow the facilitator to take over completely. Be sure the facilitator remembers to reiterate that all ideas are good ideas rule and encourage everyone to speak, follow the rules and schedule you have set up. Action 4, record everything. In addition to take notes, do record the session using either audio or video. Troubleshoot brainstorming problems. As you get into the brainstorming process, you may run into one or more common challenges. Problem 1, drying up or brain becoming repetitive. At some point, your group will have a hard time coming up with additional ideas. Sometimes that is because they have rarely expressed all their thoughts. Often though, they may need a coffee break or a little time to think. If a break does not result in additional creativity, try going back to a few of the ideas that have already been expressed. Does anyone have an idea that relates or builds on one of these? Problem 2, not enough or too much creativity. Too little creative thinking or too much of the chart imagination can be problematic to effective brainstorming. While it is great to think creatively, ridiculous suggestions intended to get a laugh can, with the Martian instead of our client, can steer things off topic. By the same token, extremely conservative ideas can stifle creative thinking. Use your facilitation skills to steer people back on course. Maybe the marathons aren't an option, but should we be thinking about reaching out to a completely different group of clients? Boredom is also one of the problem. So even you have to take care of. Create a timeline with clear objectives. Well, you now know how to brainstorm and run a group session. Brainstorm is not difficult, but it does require some solid skills as well as flexibility and openness to new and potentially risky ideas. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that you will get success with the help of brainstorming, and you would be a well organizer, a good manager, following all these points I have mentioned just now. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye bye. See you next time.